Uncle Edgar, Orion began softly, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Did anything special happen around the estate or academy during the time I was unconscious? Any interesting events or visitors? Edgar met Orion's gaze with a gentle, knowing smile. He nodded thoughtfully, reflecting for a moment before beginning to speak, his voice calm yet tinged with a subtle warmth. Indeed, young master. Quite a few things happened, but most notably, each of your club members paid visits to our estate, Edgar explained, his expression softening as he remembered their visits. They were quite worried about you, you know. Each of them came personally to ask about your condition. Orion's lips curved gently upward, his heart filling with warmth. He leaned back slightly, silently urging Edgar to continue. Edgar then proceeded to tell Orion about the visit and what they had asked him to tell Orion. As Edgar finished recounting everyone's visits, a calm silence gently filled the carriage. Orion, now absorbed in thought, gazed thoughtfully out at the bustling cityscape passing by. Within his sea of consciousness, Orion softly addressed Lumi, his mental tone gently reflective. Lumi, Orion asked softly, eyes fixed contemplatively outside, what do you think? How do you think NYSS will react once she learns about my current state and all that happened? Lumi's voice responded quickly, gentle sadness evident within her usually cheerful tone. That poor girl might start blaming herself again, master. She's already prone to carrying such burdens. Though I have to admit, your luck has been pretty rocky since you met her. Orion chuckled lightly, shaking his head gently as a calm smile formed on his lips. True, perhaps. But not rocky enough to blame her or anyone else. This wasn't NYSS's fault. Everything that happened was a result of my choices, and I must carry the weight of those consequences myself. Lumi's floating screen abruptly appeared in front of Orion, her Kamaji face beaming brightly with pride and admiration. Hee hee. That's exactly why you're the best, master. Taking responsibility like a true leader. Alright then, let's hurry back and reassure everyone with your glorious return. Orion chuckled softly, glorious return with this broken body? Winky face. Shaking his head lightly, he returned his gaze thoughtfully outside. The carriage soon rolled smoothly to a halt before the grand gates of Thunder Peak Royal Academy. Orion gracefully descended from the carriage, immediately drawing attention from nearby students. Quiet gasps of shock and awe whispered softly around him, curious eyes widening in astonishment. Orion's drastically changed appearance, his mature figure, striking features, and the heterochromatic eyes caught everyone off guard, igniting quiet murmurs of disbelief and excitement. Isn't that Orion Hellstorm? He's finally back? By the elements, he looks completely different. Ignoring their astonishment, Orion calmly retrieved his student badge, presenting it smoothly to the guards at the gate. They swiftly verified his identity, greeting him respectfully and stepping aside to let him pass. Entering the academy grounds, Orion took a deep breath, savoring the familiar atmosphere. The academy remained unchanged, vast, bustling with students, scholars, and instructors. The sounds of laughter, chatter, and distant lectures filled the air with familiar comfort. But now he could distinctly feel that everyone had grown considerably stronger than 8 months ago. Just with a casual glance, he spotted a lot of students at the 4th tier of the awakened realm. But ignoring them all, he walked calmly through the main path, the murmurs around him growing louder as more students noticed his arrival. Orion met their gazes with calmness but didn't pause, moving steadily toward the garden, wanting to meet with his old friends and club members quickly. Inside his mind, Lumi spoke excitedly, her screen gently floating beside him, invisible to all others. Hee hee, master, look at everyone's reactions. Your grand return is even more dramatic than Lumi expected. Orion chuckled quietly, responding warmly in his mind, yes, because they don't know my condition. But let them be, I had thought they might have forgotten who I am by now. Stepping further into the academy grounds, Orion moved gracefully along the familiar pathways toward the garden area where his club often gathered. The soft murmurs and whispers gradually faded into the background as he approached the serene garden, a place etched deeply within his memory. Arriving at the heart of the garden, Orion paused, his gaze lingering thoughtfully upon the majestic cherry blossom tree at its very center. Its vibrant pink blossoms gently fluttered in the breeze, occasionally drifting downward in graceful arcs to carpet the grass beneath. Yet despite its beauty, the space felt strangely empty. None of his familiar friends appeared present. He softly murmured inwardly, brows knitted gently in contemplation, "I wonder if none of them have come, or perhaps they're somewhere else." Lumi's bright voice chimed gently in his sea of consciousness, her Kamaji face hovering playfully at the edge of his vision. "Master, maybe they're somewhere more exciting, like the main building. Shall we check there?" Orion smiled faintly, giving a gentle nod. "You might be right, Lumi. Let's have a look." Turning away from the tranquil yet lonely cherry blossom tree, Orion calmly strode towards the towering main building at the heart of Thunder Peak Royal Academy. Students he passed continued casting astonished glances his way, whispers trailing in his wake. Traversing the academy grounds, Orion admired how serene the academy was, still proudly majestic, with beautifully ornate halls bustling with students and instructors. These guys really trained hard, huh? So many of them reached Tier 4 and 5. If this continues, they might reach Tier 5 and 6 by the time the test arrives. Hehe, who doesn't fear death? They're just training as much as they can lest they die out there. Greater than over equal to less than over equal to. Continuing onward, Orion heard faint sounds echoing from the distant practice arena, intriguing him immediately. He veered gently toward the arena, curiosity guiding his steps, wondering whether his club members or friends were present there. Approaching the practice arena, Orion found a dense crowd of students gathered near one of the combat fields, their backs blocking his view. Sounds of excitement and shouts of encouragement rose and fell rhythmically, clearly indicating an ongoing match. Curiosity sparked further within him as Orion gently moved toward the commotion. Reaching the edge of the crowd, Orion lightly patted the shoulder of a student standing close by, intending to ask what was happening. The student spun around sharply, his face contorting briefly with annoyance at the interruption. "What?" the student began irritably, but his words died abruptly upon recognizing Orion. His eyes widened dramatically, his mouth opening and closing wordlessly before hurriedly stepping aside. "Oh, Orion? Why, you're back." Nearby students immediately turned their attention toward Orion upon hearing the commotion, quickly realizing his presence. A collective gasp rippled softly through the crowd, which instinctively parted to clear a direct path toward the front of the arena. "Look! It's Orion Hellstorm. He's finally returned. Make way for young Master Orion. Move aside quickly." Ignoring their astonished whispers, Orion calmly stepped forward, gently acknowledging the odd gazes and quiet greetings with faint nods. Soon, he stood at the very front, finally gaining a clear view of the intense duel unfolding within the arena. Orion's dual-colored eyes widened slightly in astonishment, immediately recognizing the student fighting bravely against a senior-year student. It was unmistakably Elias, one of his club members and friends. Elias, who once struggled with self-confidence, now stood boldly, his aura vibrant and powerful, clearly revealing he had impressively reached the 6th tier of the awakening realm. In the arena, Elias stood poised with an air of unwavering focus, his dark robes billowing gently around him. His opponent, a senior with dual elemental affinities for thunder and wind, glared fiercely, sparks and wind currents swirling around him. The senior thrust forward aggressively, conjuring a powerful wind blade enhanced with crackling lightning, aiming directly for Elias. However, Elias merely raised one hand calmly, murmuring softly under his breath. "Gravity shield." Instantly, the air shimmered briefly before Elias as a dense gravitational distortion formed. The senior's lightning-infused wind blade collided with this invisible barrier, distorting and dissipating harmlessly. Frustration flashing across his opponent's face, the senior student swiftly attempted another angle, leaping high with enhanced wind propulsion, thunder energy crackling around his fists. Yet Elias's composure remained unshaken. He raised his palm upward, eyes glowing softly. Gravity suppression. A massive surge of gravitational force instantly descended upon the senior student midair, abruptly slamming him downward. The senior's expression contorted in shock as his body crashed onto the arena floor, the immense gravitational force immobilizing him temporarily. Gasps of astonishment and excitement erupted from the surrounding students, impressed by Elias's effortless dominance. However, with fierce determination, the senior forced himself to rise shakily, struggling fiercely against the oppressive gravitational force. Anger and desperation flared in his eyes as he prepared his final assault. Thunderstorm cyclone, he roared furiously, summoning intense, swirling winds intertwined with crackling thunderbolts, creating a ferocious vortex around himself. Observing closely, Orion watched with calm approval as Elias took a steady breath, unmoved even against the intimidating storm. Gravity distortion field, Elias quietly commanded. Instantly, a wide gravitational arc expanded outward, distorting the cyclone's rotation. The senior's carefully controlled vortex began unraveling chaotically, the lightning bolts scattering aimlessly under the immense gravitational interference. Before the senior could regain control, Elias decisively raised his other hand, his tone quietly resolute. Gravity surge. In an instant, a concentrated pulse of gravitational force struck the senior directly, propelling him backward with overwhelming power. The senior crashed against the arena's boundary wall, slumping downward in clear defeat, the arena erupting into cheers and applause. Orion smiled gently, feeling rather pleased with Elias's progress. His friend had matured greatly, displaying impressive strength, calmness, and strategic insight. Lumi's voice cheerfully echoed inside Orion's mind, her Kamaji face practically glowing with excitement. Master, Elias improved incredibly fast. His gravity element is even more formidable now, it's finally showing its true colors. Orion chuckled softly, nodding approvingly. Indeed. He's worked hard, far harder than I expected. In the arena, Elias exhaled gently, clearly relieved by his victory. But as he turned to acknowledge the crowd, his gaze abruptly froze, eyes widening dramatically upon noticing Orion standing at the front, observing him calmly. Orion! Elias called instinctively, his serious demeanor instantly changing into a surprised yet genuinely joyful smile. You're finally back. Orion chuckled softly, not correcting him just yet as he looked at him with pride at his display. You've grown strong, Elias, Orion complimented genuinely, his calm voice carrying clearly above the surrounding murmurs. Elias smiled sheepishly while rubbing the back of his head, feeling clear joy at Orion's praise. After all, Orion was the target he wanted to surpass. The crowd of students surrounding them murmured excitedly, whispering fervently about Orion's return and Elias's remarkable prowess. Thank you, Orion, Elias responded earnestly, stepping closer as the students instinctively parted further to let Orion approach. We've been anxiously waiting for your return. Everyone's missed you dearly. Orion nodded gently, warmth evident within his calm expression. I can see how hard you've trained. You have really surpassed my expectations. Elias smiled brightly, clearly relieved and delighted by Orion's acknowledgement. Everyone has improved significantly, Orion. You'll be surprised at their progress as well. Orion's lips curved upward. Well, now I've got an estimation of how much everyone has improved. So where are the others? Elias paused thoughtfully, briefly glancing around at the still curious students murmuring excitedly nearby. He quickly turned his attention back to Orion, his voice becoming clear and focused as he explained where the rest of their group had dispersed to. Well, Arya and Emilia have been holed up in the elemental chamber nearly every day, Elias began carefully, his voice containing clear admiration. Those two have been training like maniacs, barely leaving except to eat or rest briefly when they are here. Orion smiled softly at the news, nodding thoughtfully. It was just like Arya and Emilia to push themselves relentlessly, each striving to maintain their status as top students in the academy. And NYSS? Orion asked curiously, an eyebrow raised slightly. Elias immediately replied, nodding toward the looming silhouette of the Tower of Myths. NYSS has been continuously challenging the tower lately. Ever since your absence, she's been working harder than ever, pushing herself to break through her previous limits. Right now, she's probably midway through another intense climb. Orion nodded gently, feeling an appreciative warmth toward Nyss's tireless determination. I see. And Sylvia? Sylvia left the academy temporarily, Elias explained calmly. She said she needed to undergo specialized training somewhere secluded. She hasn't returned yet, so I imagine she's making some pretty big gains. Orion made a mental note, impressed by Sylvia's initiative, and asked further, what about Philyra and Kale? Philyra has been spending most of her time at the Mage's Tower, studying advanced rune formations and spells with the senior mages of the city, Elias responded thoughtfully, clearly respecting her dedication. As for Kale, he returned to his estate for a while to handle some family affairs. He said he'll return soon. Orion took a brief moment to absorb the information, pleased to hear everyone had taken their training so seriously during his long absence. Good to hear everyone stayed focused, though Kale really gets busy with his family matters. Well, let's not disturb Arya and Emilia yet. Nyss is closest, so let's pay her a visit first. Sure, Elias nodded with a faint smile, quickly falling into step beside Orion as they headed toward the imposing Tower of Myths. They walked side by side, comfortable silence stretching between them as students continued glancing their way in awe, clearly impressed by Orion's calm yet dominant presence. After several moments, Elias turned curiously toward Orion, his expression becoming slightly puzzled. By the way, Orion, he asked carefully, hesitant yet genuinely curious, why does your mana cultivation feel significantly lower than your body refinement level? Orion chuckled quietly, a soft smile forming at Elias's perceptive question. He calmly replied with a casual tone, oh, it's nothing major, just some damaged mana channels and a few foundation issues. I'll get it sorted out soon enough. Abruptly, Elias stopped in his tracks, eyes widening dramatically in shock. What? He exclaimed loudly, disbelief evident on his normally composed face. What the fuck happened to you? How did you sustain such serious injuries? Weren't you supposed to be safely training with your grandpa's friends? Orion calmly turned back, chuckling lightly at Elias's incredulous reaction. He shook his head slowly, calmly placing a reassuring hand on Elias's shoulder. It's a very long story, Elias, Orion responded quietly, his tone calm yet firm, signaling clearly he wished to avoid delving deeper into it. It's all in the past now. There's no need to dwell on it. Elias took a deep breath, attempting to settle the rush of concern and confusion within him. He reluctantly nodded, accepting Orion's wishes despite still feeling troubled by the revelation. All right, if you say so. But still, Orion, are you sure you're fine now? Orion smiled gently, nodding reassuringly as he began walking again, Elias quickly following beside him. Don't worry about me. For now, let's focus on Nyss. And please, don't mention anything about this to her, okay? Elias sighed deeply, reluctantly agreeing. Fine. But don't forget, we're here for you if you need anything. Thanks, Elias, Orion responded warmly, genuinely appreciating the sincerity behind his friend's concern. Inside his sea of consciousness, Lumi's voice giggled softly, her Kamaji face filled with playful mischief. Elias sure is a good friend, Master. He looks genuinely worried about you. Orion inwardly smiled, replying calmly in his mind, yes. I'm fortunate to have friends who care so deeply. As they walked toward the towering structure of the Tower of Myths, the massive silhouette of the Tower of Myths rose imposingly against the clear morning sky, its lofty pinnacle seemingly piercing through the clouds themselves. Orion and Elias approached the grand structure calmly, their footsteps echoing faintly upon the cobbled path lined by lush greenery and well-maintained flower beds. Outside the tower entrance, Instructor Viren lounged lazily in a sturdy chair, tipping it precariously backward on two legs. He casually tossed a storage ring upward, catching it smoothly each time with an amused smirk playing across his lips. A short distance away, another instructor, his expression sour and visibly annoyed, stormed off grumbling something under his breath, clearly having lost a wager against the infamous gambling-loving Viren. Noticing the duo's arrival, Viren abruptly ceased his playful tosses, placing his chair back firmly onto the ground. His eyes widened slightly with pleasant surprise as they fell upon Orion. "Young Hellstorm," Darren called out, pushing himself upright from his chair with genuine intrigue evident in his normally carefree expression. "It's certainly been a while. Where have you been hiding all this time?" Orion greeted him politely with a faint, amused smile, responding calmly, "Good morning, Instructor Viren. I was occupied with some personal matters and training, but I've just returned." Darren let out a hearty laugh, placing one hand on his waist as he grinned widely, clearly entertained by Orion's casual reply. "Haha. Excellent timing. It's honestly been far too quiet around here without your shenanigans stirring things up. Finally, the academy might become interesting again." Orion shook his head slightly, chuckling lightly at the instructor's overly dramatic yet genuine welcome. "It's good to see you haven't changed, Instructor." Darren grinned broadly, evidently pleased by Orion's remark, before his gaze shifted briefly toward Elias with a knowing look, acknowledging his presence with a nod. Turning serious, Orion directed his eyes toward the imposing tower gate, his expression becoming thoughtful. "Instructor, is NYSS inside the tower currently? How long has she been climbing?" Instructor Viren turned slowly toward the tower, a faint smile of approval crossing his features as he nodded appreciatively. "Yes, she's been inside for several hours now. Honestly, that lass continues to impress me each time she attempts the climb. At this rate, she might break into the tower's top floors soon." Orion nodded calmly, warmth and pride subtly shining within his dual-colored eyes. "She's always been tenacious, especially due to her luck," he murmured the last words softly to himself, reflecting briefly on NYSS's steadfast determination and quiet strength. Just as Orion and Viren turned their full attention to the looming tower, a sudden bright flash of white light illuminated the tower gate. Moments later, NYSS appeared abruptly, teleported out onto the marble-paved platform at the entrance, her figure slumping slightly forward as she staggered from exhaustion. Orion's eyes narrowed immediately, instantly noticing NYSS's light injuries, her clothing torn slightly at the sleeves, revealing bruises and minor cuts marking her usually flawless skin. Her breathing was slightly ragged, chest rising and falling quickly from exertion, and strands of her normally neat hair clung damply to her flushed face. However, despite clear signs of exhaustion and pain, NYSS's expression remained cold and emotionless. Her eyes held the same icy coldness that kept others at arm's length as she struggled to regain her footing. Orion swiftly stepped forward instinctively, moving quickly yet calmly to support her, his voice gentle but firm. "NYSS, are you all right?" NYSS raised her head sharply upon hearing Orion's familiar voice, eyes widening dramatically in astonishment and disbelief. For a moment, she merely stared at him silently, seemingly unsure whether her tired eyes were playing tricks on her. "Oh, Orion," she stammered hesitantly, voice trembling slightly with surprise and emotional intensity. Her wide eyes scanned him from head to toe, then back again in stunned silence. He was taller, much taller. The boy she remembered had stood just barely above her height, but now he loomed a full head taller. His frame had broadened, sharpened, matured in ways that made him feel almost like a stranger. But it was his eyes that struck her the hardest. One gleamed a deep crimson, the other shimmered with an unnatural violet hue. Gone were the plain dark irises she'd once known, now replaced with colors that pulsed with quiet power. "You've changed," she whispered, barely audible, fascination and confusion lacing her tone. A faint, amused smile tugged at Orion's lips as he gently placed a supportive hand on her shoulder to steady her as she swayed slightly. "Indeed, I've changed and returned. You've clearly been pushing yourself too hard in my absence." NYSS flushed slightly with embarrassment, quickly averting her gaze downward. I couldn't just wait around doing nothing. Everyone has been getting stronger. I needed to improve as well." "How cute." Hee hee. She acts so cold sometimes and then becomes embarrassed. "You truly are one lucky dog, Master. Ring in equal to ring in equal to." He inwardly shook his head with a smile. "She's a sweet girl, but due to her own circumstances she has to keep others away lest she hurt them. Otherwise, I imagine her personality would be similar to Fiora's. Looking at Nyss, he smiled warmly and nodded, yes, I understand that. And I can see how remarkable your progress has been. But pushing yourself too hard won't have pretty consequences. Of course Master would know. He's withstanding those consequences right now. Instructor Viren laughed heartily from behind, clearly amused by Orion's gentle yet direct scolding. Listen to him, Nyss. The young Hellstorm has returned with some sensible advice. Perhaps you should take it easier now. Nyss looked toward Viren without a smile and nodded her head. Viren's lips twitched as he saw the difference in treatment, shaking his head as he went back to lie down on his chair. Orion chuckled and said again, I'm serious here, don't dismiss it. Nyss blushed lightly, biting her lower lip before reluctantly nodding. I'll try to be more cautious, she murmured quietly, finally allowing herself to lean slightly against Orion's supportive grasp as her fatigue caught up fully. Elias approached the duo but remained at arm's length from Nyss, as he had learned a thing or two about her luck during these months. He greeted her with a smile, welcome back, Nyss. How far did you manage to climb? Nyss looked toward him calmly and replied, 70th floor. Elias sighed and nodded, you really improved fast. Last month you had barely reached the 60th level. Orion looked toward Nyss in surprise, oh? You already reached the 70th floor? That's impressive. Nyss lightly smiled and nodded her head. Elias then looked at her suspiciously and said, why don't you drink a healing elixir? Your condition would improve. Nyss turned her head and looked at him with cold eyes before taking out an elixir and drinking it. Orion, on the other hand, shook his head while looking at the confused face of Elias. As Nyss swallowed the elixir, a faint glow began emanating softly from her body, her visible injuries healing rapidly. Small cuts closed seamlessly, bruises gradually faded until her skin returned to its usual pale, flawless appearance. Her breathing steadied, the tension easing from her shoulders as she regained her composure. Reluctantly, Nyss withdrew from Orion's support, slowly standing straight. A fleeting trace of disappointment flashed through her icy black eyes as she relinquished the brief comfort his support had provided, quickly masked by her usual cool demeanor. Orion gave her an approving nod, noting her quick recovery. He then turned toward Elias, his expression shifting into curiosity. Well, now that we've met with Nyss, let's head toward the elemental chambers, Orion suggested calmly, glancing briefly toward Instructor Viren, who had already returned to lounging lazily in his chair, twirling his recently acquired storage ring with an amused smirk. Elias quickly nodded, stepping forward with enthusiasm. Sure, I'll lead the way. Nyss quietly fell into step beside Orion, her gaze occasionally drifting sideways toward him, quietly studying the significant changes he'd undergone during his absence. She couldn't help but feel a subtle sense of unease. Orion's drastic transformation seemed to hint at deeper events beyond her current understanding. As the trio navigated through the familiar academy paths, vibrant greenery and carefully cultivated gardens passed on either side. The gentle morning sun cast a soft golden light upon the polished stone pathways, painting the academy grounds in a serene atmosphere. Students passing by stared openly at Orion, whispering softly amongst themselves about his unexpected return and his significantly altered appearance. Orion paid them no mind, his attention solely focused on meeting with Arya and the others. Soon enough, Elias led them around to the rear section of Thunder Peak Academy, toward a secluded area where multiple large, dome-shaped elemental chambers stood prominently. Each chamber radiated subtle yet distinct elemental energy, the doors etched with runes specific to their elemental type. Pausing before two adjacent chambers occupied by Arya and Emilia respectively, the group waited calmly outside, chatting quietly to pass the time. After a brief wait, a soft hum resonated as Arya's elemental chamber door swung open smoothly. Arya stepped out briskly, her purple hair cascading softly down her shoulders, and her clear violet eyes immediately falling upon Orion. Arya's eyes widened dramatically in surprise, astonishment clearly written across her delicate features as she took in Orion's dramatically changed appearance. Brother Orion, she exclaimed with genuine shock and excitement, hurrying quickly toward him, her gaze scanning him carefully from head to toe. Her voice filled with curiosity and confusion. What happened to you? How did you change so much? Orion responded with a warm, reassuring smile, amusement evident within his eyes. Nothing much happened. Just a few events here and there, and now here I am, a little different than before. I'll explain it to you later. Arya studied him carefully for another moment, her gaze lingering with open curiosity upon his unusual dual-colored eyes. Eventually, she nodded slowly, trust overcoming her curiosity for the moment. Hee, she suddenly giggled lightly, brightening with excitement as she eagerly changed the subject. Brother Orion, do you know what tier I reached while you were away? Orion smiled faintly, already fully aware from her aura that Arya had advanced impressively to the 6th tier. Nevertheless, he entertained her playful excitement, asking gently with exaggerated curiosity, "Oh? And what tier have you reached?" Arya's expression became proudly triumphant, her voice brimming with genuine delight as she declared, 6th tier. I reached it recently, and I'm officially the youngest one in the entire academy to reach this level. Orion laughed softly, gently patting her head in affectionate approval. Haha, that's exactly what I'd expect from my Arya. You've made tremendous progress. Now, we're finally ready to pursue the goals we had in mind when founding this club. We've all grown strong enough to start exploring. Hearing Orion's words, Elias's eyes sparkled with excitement and anticipation, clearly eager for the adventures ahead. Arya nodded energetically as well, enthusiasm blazing brightly within her emerald gaze. As they continued chatting happily amongst themselves, another elemental chamber door abruptly opened nearby, revealing Emilia stepping out gracefully. Her elegant features briefly revealed surprise upon seeing Orion standing there, his figure taller, more mature, and significantly altered from the Orion she remembered. She halted momentarily, staring at Orion in astonishment, her sapphire eyes widening noticeably with deep curiosity. Internally, confusion and shock rippled within her thoughts. Huh? What happened to Orion? How did he change so drastically? Just then, a familiar voice resonated quietly within Emilia's sea of consciousness, the soft, resonant voice of her spear spirit. Little girl, I sense powerful energy fluctuations from Orion. His bloodline feels significantly stronger compared to last time. My guess is, he might have undergone some form of awakening or evolution to his bloodline. Emilia's gaze sharpened subtly, processing her spear spirit's insights. The idea of Orion's bloodlines evolving intrigued her deeply, curiosity and fascination intensifying within her as she continued to quietly observe him. Orion, sensing Emilia's quiet stare, turned toward her with a gentle, welcoming smile, calmly addressing her. Emilia, it's been a while. You've clearly gotten stronger as well, Orion greeted warmly, breaking her out of her contemplative thoughts. Emilia immediately regained her composure, stepping forward gracefully, the initial surprise replaced with calm serenity as she offered a gentle smile in return. It's good to have you back, Orion. Indeed, I've reached the 6th tier now as well. Orion chuckled lightly, clearly impressed but unsurprised. Excellent progress. Our entire group seems to have made significant gains while I was away. Emilia nodded softly, her eyes sparkling briefly with quiet pride. We couldn't afford to stagnate while you were out there training alone. Everyone felt the need to become stronger in fear of you surpassing us by too much. And now? She paused briefly, observing Orion's significantly altered features again. It seems you have made decent progress as well, in other places rather than just your physique path. Orion shook his head gently, humble yet acknowledging her praise with a small smile. Perhaps. But there's still much more we need to do. It's finally time for us to start exploring beyond the city, to uncover ruins, hidden lands, and seek opportunities. Emilia nodded resolutely, determination firmly etched into her expression. Arya, Elias, and Nyss similarly voiced their enthusiastic agreement, excitement clearly reflected in their brightened gazes. The academy had already given them its full support. Now it was up to them to get stronger, as there was a limit on how much strength they could gain here. Orion looked around and asked, "So, these are all the club members here, right?" Arya nodded her head. "Yes, the others are outside doing their own things." Elias looked at him. "Do you want them to gather as well?" "No, not for now," he shook his head and looked toward Lumi's screen floating around him. "For now, you guys will suffice." All of them looked at him in confusion. Nyss asked, "What do you mean? Do you want something from us?" Orion contemplated his decision for a bit before nodding his head. "Yes, you guys should come over to my mansion tomorrow. I've got something planned." "Why so mysterious, Brother Orion?" "Just tell us," Arya giggled while saying. Orion chuckled and shook his head. "It's a surprise. Just come past morning tomorrow." He continued chatting warmly with Arya, Emilia, Elias, and Nyss, each of them sharing snippets of their experiences and training during the months of his absence. The soft laughter and comfortable conversations echoed gently around the serene area surrounding the elemental chambers, the early afternoon sunlight casting golden rays over their relaxed gathering. Eventually, sensing the sun gradually climbing higher into the sky, Orion gently straightened himself, casting his calm gaze over his friends. "Well, as much as I'd love to stay and catch up further, there's still another place I need to visit today." Arya tilted her head curiously, violet eyes sparkling inquisitively. "You're leaving already, Brother Orion? Is it really that important?" Orion smiled softly, nodding gently. "Yes, it's something I shouldn't delay any longer. Don't worry, though. Remember, I expect you all at my mansion tomorrow morning." Arya's curiosity remained, but she smiled cheerfully, nodding energetically. "All right. We'll definitely be there." Elias bumped his fist with Orion and nodded at him. "Then we'll meet tomorrow, Orion. Take care." Nyss quietly nodded her head, her usually cold eyes warmed slightly as she softly added, "Then I'll meet with you tomorrow. And don't overexert yourself." Orion raised an eyebrow, wondering if she somehow saw his injuries, but he still nodded his head. "Relax. I won't do anything reckless." Emilia, holding her spear gracefully by her side, smiled gently at Orion. "We trust you, Orion. See you tomorrow." With final farewells exchanged, Orion turned around, calmly making his way back along the familiar paths toward the academy's exit. His mind was already shifting toward the next important meeting he had planned, one that he was quite looking forward to. Passing through the towering gates of Thunder Peak Royal Academy, Orion immediately spotted Edgar and Lucan patiently waiting near the elegant black carriage. Upon seeing Orion approach, both men smiled lightly and greeted him with smiles. "Young master, finished your business already?" Edgar asked calmly, stepping forward smoothly to open the carriage door for Orion. Orion nodded gently, stepping toward the waiting carriage. "Yes, everyone's doing well. It seems my absence spurred their growth significantly." Lucan chuckled softly, eyes gleaming with quiet amusement. "I imagine seeing you return looking completely different gave them quite a shock as well." Orion laughed softly as he climbed gracefully into the carriage. "You could say that." Once Orion settled comfortably inside, Edgar climbed into the carriage opposite him, while Lucan swiftly took his position at the front, taking the reins in hand. "Brother Lucan," Orion instructed calmly, voice firm and clear, "let's go toward the fourth ring. I want to visit Magi and see how he's doing with my shop." Lucan acknowledged immediately, nodding respectfully. "Understood, young master." With a gentle shake of the reins, Lucan guided the carriage smoothly forward, navigating the bustling streets of the royal capital. Through the carriage's window, Orion watched calmly as the scenery transitioned slowly from the refined architecture of the second ring toward the gradually more diverse and lively environment of the fourth district. Inside the comfortable silence of the carriage, Edgar gazed thoughtfully at Orion, his experienced eyes carefully studying Orion's composed expression. After a moment, Edgar gently broke the silence, his voice calm and curious. "Young master, do you have anything specific you want from Magi or just going to see how your establishment is doing?" Orion turned his gaze away from the passing scenery, meeting Edgar's curious expression with a smile. Yes, I want to see if the drunkard wasted all this time with alcohol. Though I expect good things from him. Let's make him wear a maid dress if he slacked off, master. Orion inwardly chuckled. Let's see, that would be quite an interesting sight to see. Edgar thoughtfully nodded. I haven't heard much about him, but he did ask for more guards quite a few times in the last few months. Orion exhaled lightly and nodded his head, leaning comfortably back against the carriage seat, his dual-colored eyes staring thoughtfully ahead. Internally, his thoughts swirled rapidly, anticipation building at the prospect of finally meeting Magi again after such a long absence and seeing how fat of a stash he had collected. The elegant obsidian carriage smoothly navigated the vibrant streets of Thunder Peak's fourth ring, the rhythmic clatter of horseshoes against cobblestone roads echoing softly around them. Orion watched quietly through the carriage window, observing the bustling energy of the central market district coming alive with midday activity. Vendors energetically called out their wares from colorful stalls, displaying exotic fruits, shimmering fabrics, intricate jewelry, and fragrant spices, each merchant eager to attract the attention of the busy crowds passing through. Citizens moved briskly through the narrow streets, browsing goods, chatting warmly, and exchanging coins as the district hummed with vibrant, everyday life. Lucan gently pulled on the reins, bringing the carriage to a smooth halt at the entrance of the central market district. He turned slightly from his position at the front, calling respectfully toward Orion inside the carriage. Young master, shall I take the carriage directly to the shop, or would you prefer to explore the marketplace yourself, as usual? Orion's lips curved into a soft, relaxed smile as he heard Lucan's question. With a gentle shake of his head, he replied calmly, no need for that, brother Lucan. As I've told you before, it's not every day I get the chance to leisurely walk through such vibrant markets. I'd prefer not to miss it. Come, let's head out. Lucan's lips twitched, his usually casual expression shifting into one of mischief. He swiftly glanced around, eyes darting suspiciously from Orion to the marketplace. Abruptly, his hand instinctively reached toward his backside as he stammered loudly, why young master? Forgive me, but I suddenly have to shit, right now. Without waiting for a response, Lucan turned sharply, sprinting away dramatically in the opposite direction, disappearing swiftly into a nearby alleyway, shouting anxiously as he vanished from sight, don't wait for me, I'll find you later. Orion and Edgar stared blankly after Lucan's fleeing figure, momentarily rendered speechless by the sudden and exaggerated display. Edgar shook his head in disappointment. No matter what happens, this brat won't learn. Forgive him, young master, that bastard is quite crude. Orion shook his head and chuckled lightly, faintly amused at Lucan's new antic. It's all right, Uncle Edgar. We both are already used to his antics. Let's just go ahead. Edgar nodded in quiet agreement, stepping down gracefully from the carriage before courteously opening the door for Orion. Orion descended smoothly, adjusting his robes briefly before calmly proceeding into the lively, bustling marketplace. Strolling through the familiar central market district felt comfortably nostalgic to Orion, each step invoking pleasant memories of previous explorations. Vendors shouted enthusiastically around him, their passionate calls blending harmoniously with the bustling sounds of merchants and customers haggling over prices. As he calmly navigated the familiar paths lined with colorful vendor stalls, Orion noticed subtle changes among the merchants, some new faces energetically promoting their wares, while others, familiar from his previous visits, greeted him respectfully with warm smiles of recognition. Yet overall, the lively atmosphere of the marketplace remained unchanged, filled with an infectious vibrancy and warmth. Eventually, Orion's calm steps guided him gently toward the impressive building that housed his personal establishment, Limitless Haven. The imposing three-story structure remained proudly elegant amidst the marketplace, its polished facade reflecting soft golden sunlight. A wooden sign engraved with the name Limitless Haven swayed gently above the entrance, welcoming customers inside. Standing guard near the entrance, two disciplined guards quickly recognized Orion's approach, immediately straightening their posture and offering respectful salutes. Welcome back, young Master Orion, one guard greeted warmly, his voice carrying genuine respect. It's an honor to have you back. Orion acknowledged the guard's greetings with a calm nod and a soft smile, stepping confidently inside. The interior was nicely decorated, lined with shelves displaying carefully organized goods, rare ingredients, precious artifacts, and valuable treasures meticulously categorized. Numerous patrons browsed leisurely throughout the first and second floors, quietly conversing or inspecting the displayed items with clear interest. Employees in neat uniforms assisted customers politely, efficiently guiding them toward their requested items.